Hello, happiness abounder, and welcome back. Today, as we continue the discussion on self-leadership, I really want to hone in on one thing. And I think understanding this single thing can change everything. And in fact, once I say it, you're probably going to be like, that was the simplest piece of advice ever. But I think it's important for us to remember this piece of advice because it's something we forget too often. So, what is it? Here it is. Not every thought you have is fact. I'll say it again. Not every thought you have is fact. Because here's the thing. We have a thought, we tend to accept it as fact, and then we move based off of that fact. A key component of leadership, especially leadership of yourself, is understanding that not every thought you have is indeed fact. That person is not out to get you, even though that thought may have occurred to you. And your kids aren't purposefully going slow just to make you mad. That person in front of you that cut you off driving didn't necessarily do it on purpose. But we take those thoughts, we think that they are truth, we think and accept them as fact, and then we make decisions from there. Now imagine, just for a moment, if we didn't accept every thought as fact, and instead we said, that's an interesting perspective. How could that change things? It's kind of like changing should to could. When we stop doing the shoulds and we replace it with a could, it opens up opportunities. It's the same thing here. When we stop accepting our thoughts as facts and we start saying that's an interesting perspective, it opens up opportunities for more things to come into our lives. More thoughts, more emotions, more understandings, more situational context. And here's the thing when it comes to leading your life, self-leadership, or leadership of others even, you have to take into consideration so many different facets. The second you start accepting your first thought as fact is the second that you start being very single-minded, blinders on, and not paying attention to the other things you should pay attention to, whether that's you as an individual or you leading a team. But here's the thing, I'm not saying that that first thought is problematic. I'm just saying we shouldn't necessarily accept it as fact off the bat. Now, if you have a gut kind of feeling and a thought crosses your mind like, somebody's up to something, you can go, that's an interesting perspective, and explore it further and determine if it is indeed fact. So how does this really relate, though, to self-leadership? I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you decide that starting tomorrow, you are going to walk for 20 minutes every day. Tomorrow comes and tomorrow goes and you didn't walk. For some of you, your first thought, it doesn't even have to be first thought, a thought you have, because not every thought is fact, a thought you have is, I said I was going to do this and I didn't, and my life is just a mess and I need to get it together. And I can't even walk for 20 minutes. What's wrong with me? Why can't I prioritize this in my life? Now, those thoughts certainly are not facts. But we tend to think that they are. We tend to accept every thought we have about ourselves as fact. The thing is, it's not. It is not fact that you are worthless because you can't get up and walk for 20 minutes on one day. It doesn't work that way. You're not worthless, and other things could have came up. Now, I have tons and tons and tons of other episodes, other content around goal getting, routines, setting yourself up for success, but that is not what this is about. This is not honing in on the why you didn't walk. It's honing in on the thoughts surrounding why you didn't walk and not necessarily accepting those thoughts, especially if they are in negative states, as fact. Do you think that it is more encouraging to someone you're leading to say, you didn't do this right, what's wrong with you? Or more encouraging to say, hey, let's see what we can do to set this up for success next time, because it looks like we missed a few things here and I want to make sure that you are equipped to be able to handle this again. Or, you did a great job, there's a few things I think we could tweak. Do you mind if I sit down and we kind of work through it together? Those last two are worlds better, and even though they may not be the perfect leadership techniques, they are worlds better than, you didn't get this right, what's wrong with you? But when we lead ourselves, we always go to option number one. It's like inevitable that we accept option number one as fact, and those thoughts are not true. So a core component of self-leadership is leading yourself through your thoughts, the language you're using in your head, in a way that you would lead someone else. How do you set them up for success? How do you encourage, inspire, motivate, educate them, aka you? Because when you can do that, you can start to lead yourself and change your life. But it all starts with the single thought that not every thought is fact. And especially not your very first thought is fact. I, to this day, after years and years and years of self-work, will occasionally get my first thought being pretty negative and overwhelmed, and I can't do this. And I cannot accept that as fact, because then I put my blinders on, I believe that it's true, and I will not be able to do the things that I know I actually can do. And this applies to every area of your life. Don't accept every thought as fact. Instead, explore them as interesting perspectives and explore your options of thoughts before diving into one that may or may not be the right thing. I say may or may not because, again, maybe that thought is the right thing, but just accepting it as truth right off the bat, accepting it as fact without some exploration, isn't necessarily leadership. If you had two people coming to you and saying that there was a problem, you would want to hear both sides before you made a decision. So why not the same for yourself? You would want to hear the negative side and the positive side before you decided which one was truth and fact. So I will say it again to round out this episode. A core component of leading yourself and leadership in general, but specifically leading yourself, is understanding that not every thought you have is fact, and instead look at it as an interesting perspective to explore so that you can determine the best path for you. So I'm going to leave you with that today. I hope that this episode resonated with you. If it did or it didn't, I would love to hear from you and get your feedback. You can send me a message at happinessabound.com. You can connect with me on Facebook at Happiness Abound blog, on Instagram at happiness_abound, and or you can rate, review, and subscribe on your podcast listening platform of choice at Happiness Abound on Apple Podcasts, or you can leave a review as well on Facebook at Happiness Abound blog. So I hope to hear from you. I hope this episode resonated with you. Would love to see you share it. Make sure to tag me when you do so that I can see it. And above everything else, two things. Remember that not every thought is fact. But most importantly, remember that you are capable of happiness abound.